Time for App of the Week. So lately there's been a really big push to raise awareness about the dangers of texting while driving and being a distracted driver.
Yeah, something you wouldn't know anything about.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You texted me today from the road because you were late.
I didn't text you. I emailed you.
Yeah, you actually, that's right. You
But my
emailed me
car
on the road
wasn't
today.
moving. It was just sitting there.
Okay.
So Oprah actually, wow, I bring it up over 2 weeks in a row, so weird, recently featured families who lost loved ones to distracted drivers. Katie Couric brought up the topic, said the text and drive issue needed a wake-up call. Yeah. I mean, basically the crusade against distracted driving, especially for teenagers, has become a really big topic du jour. Like, and it's, this is, and a lot of people are like, that's why I love the speech-to-text feature on my Nexus 1. And yeah, like anybody who has 2.1 or higher has speech-to-text, which is great. But for younger, less experienced drivers, that still might not even be enough. Right. So that's where Otterapp comes in. And Otterapp is our app of the week. It's a Seattle-based software company whose concept was born from a near miss of the owner's 3-year-old daughter by a driver who was preoccupied with texting. Eesh. So, I mean, that's turning lemons into lemonade, if anything. Sure. I mean, that's really, I mean, that's amazing. And that owner is here with us today, Erik Wood, the owner of Otterapp. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Ashley.
And so tell us a little bit about Otter and how it works.
Well, what we try to do is create a comprehensive text management system as opposed to just painting ourselves into a driving safety corner. We really feel like if we're going to affect some sort of tangible change on the roads, it's going to be done from within the texting culture and not sort of with Big Brother type invasive methods either. You know, legislation and education can only go so far, and then a lot of the software and hardware devices that we've seen are accompanied with words like lockdown and govern and control. And you know, if you push up against anything in nature, it tends to push back, and I think teens are times 10 in that regard. So what we did is we just wanted to have applicability in the home, office, and on the road. And I think what that does is it allows us to show teens, and especially the highest risk user group, like you said, that we respect texting. I mean, this issue, I think, people are already talking about tipping points on texting and driving and the whole texting culture. And I've been studying this. My wife thinks I'm a nut because I read about 100 to 200 pages a week on texting and driving and texting at work. And I really firmly believe that this issue is in its infancy. You have college freshmen now who have Facebook accounts and they text, and they do not have email addresses. I think I'm so hip with all my email addresses, and I get back to people and I'm hitting balls over the net. These guys, they're not even using email. So you know, 72% of teens now are admit to texting and driving. So, you know, I just think that people are talking about a tipping point, but we're not even there. I think this issue is really in its infancy, and the way to address it is to give the teens and the young user groups, specifically between 13 and 22 is the highest risk group that we're seeing, is to give them a tool and have them have uses for it other than on the road, and then we'll find that they'll use it on the road. So basically, we're offering a tool and not a shackle, Ashley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was the one thing that I think when I had originally talked to you, the one thing that a lot of teenagers really sort of responded to when they were presented with this app is that it wasn't a lockdown. It wasn't taking away their rights as a cell phone user, if you can. I mean, if you have rights as a cell.
Yeah, but if they feel like it, then
yeah. I'd be like, you're 16 and you have no rights. Like I'm your parent and I'm taking your
unless
phone.
You're 16 and you think very differently.
And then you think very differently, right? But for them, like it was very much not about control. It's more about like, we just want you to be safe. Here's something you can use.
It's a carrot, not a stick.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And it does have some teeth. I mean, we have a parental control feature that has a session-specific passcode. And what that does is it engages the parents on the topic with the teens. But more importantly, the auto-reply feature and that functionality, which is, by the way, its own app in Otter Urban. There's just an app that's just Otter Urban for people who want texting auto reply app, and it's getting really good ratings and responses. But we've had my favorite use case right now is a teen who we were contacted by the parents that said that the teenager was using the auto reply feature to schedule his own texting blackout period so he can get some studying done. So basically, just like I did during this interview right now, I just hit my auto reply and set it for 2 hours. I said, I just left it on manual, and I said, I'm talking to Ashley with this week in Android, and I'll get back to you at 5 o'clock. So you can text me right now, Ashley, and that's the reply that you'll get right away. And this teen was doing the same thing. He was not disconnected from his social group. He still feels connected, but he's got the phone there, and the notifications are turned off. He gets some studying done. So that teenager, in my opinion, is going to be so much more likely to see Otter and welcome it into other parts of his texting life, and ergo driving. I mean, that's where we see teens taking it upon themselves to just hit the GPS mode button, and that's really all you have to do. I did another interview where the person really wanted to see more action. 4 weeks ago, I checked the GPS mode button on my Motorola Droid, and it's just been on. I forget that it's on, but when my car's in motion, it silences the incoming text notifications, and it also silences the ringtones unless I'm using a Bluetooth device. So I'm not fumbling for a ringing phone, and I'm not tempted by that, that Pavlovian need to respond that we have when we hear those sexy chimes and buzzes. There's something about it that I'm not immune to it. I definitely, if my wife or somebody texts me while I'm driving, I admit I'm tempted. So I haven't been for the last 4 weeks, and it just works great.
Yeah, it seems incredibly, like we always think about how attached we are to our phones, and I think sometimes we don't realize how attached we are to our cell phones. But then when you have to go without for a little while, you're just like, oh my God,
Right.
I'm missing out.
Yeah.
I'm missing out on everything. And so I feel like this is sort of a really nice mitigation factor. Like, you're not having to completely cut yourself off from the entire world. Like, people are still getting texts from you, but then on that same note, you're practicing safe driving, and you're practicing, and like you said, I mean, even if you just want people to leave you alone, like you're just
Right.
like, hey,
Right.
everybody leave me alone. I'll get all your messages. It's not like my phone's shut off. I'll get everything, and I'll respond to it in time. But I need this hour for whatever.
Right.
And it's and you're hitting the ball over the net. It's just that Otter's doing it for you, and so you can kind of focus on doing one thing at a time. And I think it also tends to promote the idea of doing one thing well with quality results, as opposed to doing 7 or 8 things at once with mediocre results, is maybe a better way to go. So there's other things that it leads into in terms of quality. That, again, I like that we haven't painted ourselves into a driving safety corner, and we're not taking an invasive sort of lockdown approach. We do have some teeth to it with the parental control feature, but I think if the teens and other people can see the applicability across the board, whether you're at home, office, or on the road, it'll become a part of the texting culture. And it's funny you said about the need, Ashley, because I have before, when I've talked about this, I've equated texting, when you look at it in the context of big tobacco, it's sort of the nicotine of the cell phone industry. And so I'm a huge fan of personal responsibility. Anybody who knows me knows that that's my own personal philosophy, that I think that's important. But I do think that there's a certain amount of responsibility that the big cell carriers have in delivering these delivery devices, if you will, to these people. And the stats are just now rolling in on this topic on the highways. And I think as we move forward and more, small sheriff stations and so forth are aware to check texting records before, you're gonna slowly see the statistics becoming more and more alarming. I mean, Utah is at the forefront of this issue with David Strayer, who's been on Oprah several times. He's the father of distracted driving study. And with Utah, with all their education and being definitely the harshest in terms of legislation, just this week they had an article come out that said that their texting and driving is on the rise. So something has to be done from within, and that's where we saw the need. And the other jaw-dropping part, I guess, which I thought it was priced really reasonably, but it seems like a lot of the competition make it sound like you have to build and launch your own satellite to get one of these systems to work. And ours is $3.99. And when I tell people that, they say, "Oh, is that a month?" And I say, no, it's $3.99. You own it. We don't want any of your personal information. Just go use it. And they're really shocked. They think that there's maybe, does this really work because it's only $4? When you look at some of the competition, that's $25 to $99, and they have recurring fees, and you have to manage it from a PC.
And it's a lockdown system.
Yeah. And so I felt like there was a big chasm when I started looking at this after the incident with my daughter, between the efforts of the legislature, the really noble efforts of some of the groups that we're aligning ourselves with on the education front, and then what is actually, tangible results on the road. And this is why I did it. It's just, it came to me at 3 a.m. and we're on a tear.
Very nice. So, so there's Otterapp, and Otterapp. Like, what are the differences between the three? How much do they cost?
Yeah, what are the features?
Explain to our viewers, what different things are included with different versions of Otter, so that they can maybe choose which one would be best for them.
Sure. Otter Lite is basically just a taste. It gives you 3 auto replies in just a default, if you will. It's the original concept for Otter, which is an acronym for One Touch Text Response. So if you have Otter enabled with Otter Lite, and a text comes in, 3 big balloons pop on your screen, and you can just quickly touch them and say yes, no, or I'll be in touch later. The 3 default responses, and that's more of I think an office thing where people want to be even closer to their text in terms of management, but they just quickly want to, like I said, use that analogy of hitting the ball over the net. That's more of an office type setup, but it does give you the idea of what the rest of the screens and the functionality are. So it's basically a taste. That's what Otter Lite is. Otter Urban is specifically for the user that doesn't have any need for the GPS. Maybe they like to manage their own text. Certainly, while they're driving. I mean, certainly you can use the auto reply feature to manage your text while you're driving. It has the same functionality. It stops all incoming text notifications. So if they're organizing, we've met a lot of users and emailed a lot that are really into the auto reply apps. We had one guy from Canada who, I thought I had a lot of time for testing, but this guy had downloaded and returned 12 apps, and he got in touch with us and said that ours had the best functionality. He had some questions about it, and I was really pleased with that. But there definitely is a crowd out there that really likes and have specific needs for their auto reply for texting, and so that's what Otter Urban is. It's for somebody who doesn't have the needs of all the GPS and parental control features, and it's $1.99. And then you move up to $3.99 for Otter Full, which has all the it has the one-touch text response. It has the auto reply with unlimited customizable grouped responses, and then it has GPS mode, which, like I said, I just hit that button. That doesn't have anything to do with parental control, but the functionality is the same. You hit that, you can go back to your other apps, do whatever you want. Just forget that it's on, and when your car hits 10 miles an hour, it silences incoming text notifications, and if you don't have a Bluetooth, then it'll silence the ringer. So that's good for adults. And then for the parental control feature is the same functionality as GPS mode, except it incorporates a session-specific passcode, 4 numbers. You type it in, and either parent can have it. They can have their own passcode. And I think that feature is designed not only to really deter teen drivers from doing what they shouldn't be doing on the road. They should be focused, but it promotes discussion in the family. And I really think that there are going to be some teens that are going to be introduced to Otter through the parental control feature. But as they start to see some of the other functionality, you're going to have a conversation with the parent, and they're going to say, let me put Otter on, and don't worry, Mom, I got it. I got GPS mode on. And we really want them to take ownership of it. This is a tool for the individual, and I think that's I'm going to be speaking in June down at a function with the Secretary of Education in California at a press conference down there at a high school that's still to be chosen, but it's definitely one that they're choosing. It's pretty easy, unfortunately, now to choose a high school that has a text and drive fatality. Unfortunately, I didn't realize how easy it was to do that until I was talking to Kelly Browning with Impact Teen Drivers, who's setting all this up in this press conference. You know, they're going to pick a high school, and I'm going to introduce Otter, and I'm going to tell them just that you know, try to introduce it as a tool and not a shackle. And I think I really have high hopes that it can integrate into the culture, and just, you know, hopefully we can start using Otter like a verb, like Google. You know, did you Google that? You know, what's going on with so and so? Oh, they ottered me. You know, if we can just integrate like that, I think we have a chance to really affect change on the road, and it'll be tangible results and not just, you know, paper campaigns by the big cell companies that they're running right now to kind of make sure they don't end up on the wrong side of this issue. But I'd like to see something real happen on the road.
Mm-hmm. Now, just really briefly, like, I know that you had mentioned a number to me last week, and I just for total clarification, I want people to realize how much teens actually text per month, because when he told me this number, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, that can't be right. So
that's a poll we have right now on our blogs, and it's interesting because we're trying to ask parents what they think their teens text, and a lot of parents we find are auto paying their kids' cell bill, and they're not really looking. But there are many teens right now, over 50%, that are texting 2,000 times a month, and there's quite a few that are over 3,000. We had our first case. This is amazing. This one, I had to read this twice because I really couldn't believe that we had a first case of under 18 carpal tunnel surgery in North America. It was on a 16-year-old boy, and it was from texting. We're also seeing teens that are getting insomnia. They're not sleeping and dreaming, and their grades are dropping. You know why? They're sleeping with their phones.
They're waiting for that text to come in. That's what it is.
Yeah, and they're they have their phones in the cradle, and they're sleeping with them. Ugh. So, you know, I just think that this is here, and it's here to stay. And I think what we need to do is, I mean, I remember what it was like to be a teen. My wife sometimes says I'm still, you know, at that maturity level, but it's definitely one of those things that if we try to deny that this is part of their culture, I think we're going to fail. I think we really have to say, look, we respect this. We may not understand it entirely, but we respect that this is important to you, and here's a tool to help you, you know, in your studies, in your social life. And then there's a few dangerous parts of this, and, you know, we'd like you to use it there too. Hey. And I think that's a better approach than you know, doing the lockdown thing.
Eric, I have a question. So you mentioned earlier that a lot of kids today are using Facebook instead of email. And I happen to know that even myself, I have a Facebook app on my mobile device. So I'm continually getting notifications about, oh, this person messaged you, that person messaged you. I'd imagine that'd be just as distracting as text messaging. Right. So I'm wondering whether you, recognizing the fact that Facebook is a primary way teens
if not more.
Collaborate. Yeah.
Because when I get my notifications on Facebook, I'm like, ooh, what'd they say on my comment? Like, and I click on it, I'm like, I want to know what they said.
So I'm curious, do you have plans to expand Otter into Facebook land in some way or shape or form, or?
We would look at that. Right now, we haven't seen as much of that from the user groups we've talked to. You know, we're certainly concentrating on teens, but there's other big user groups out there that people don't think about, like truckers, and they've been a huge target of the legislation out of the federal legislation from Ray LaHood and even state legislations that definitely targeted truckers and so forth. So when you look at the overall culture and what's coming out of it, I think primarily right now we're looking at the smartphones and texting. And if, you know, I think there's something that I don't know how we would interface from a functionality standpoint. It would probably be something that we would have to get together with Facebook and come up with something where they would allow their functionality to work with ours. Yeah. But that's certainly, I don't think that's hard to do at all.
Yeah, no, not really.
So to answer your question, it's definitely something that we'll take a look at and it's the same thing with, you know, looking at it's interesting to see the tablets right now that are coming out, and you guys were talking about them. I was listening to your news, and I for a few minutes there I forgot that I was going to be on next. I was just sort of engrossed in your news. But
Yay.
no, and by the way, that 28% of Android smartphones, I was cheering over here. I'm glad Will had my sound off. But in terms of the tablets, there's another technology that we're not sure. We're just keeping an eye on it. It doesn't right now. It doesn't have applicability because I don't see it being used in the car so much. But certainly, if it becomes a primary, either like you said with Facebook or texting functionality, moves into that arena, we would take a look at having our apps available for tablets as well. And certainly, for example, Otterapp, if you're not going to use the tablet in the car, but you want some time just to, like Ashley said, read that book. And I'm going to work on that smell, by the way, for the books.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Fresh paper.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like a new book. But if that starts to move in that direction, I think we would move with it. So this is definitely a changing environment. We don't take anything for granted. I mean, we're watching all the platforms and all the opportunities. But I think right now the stats will back me up that the biggest danger we have on the road is right now is texting and driving. I mean, it's right. I just read a study that it's 6 times the legal alcohol limit in terms of impairment. So that if you don't
realize, I don't think anybody really realizes how impairing it can be.
Yeah, it can be pretty impairing.
I mean, it's man, it's crazy.
They study these things, and they came up with in average, I think it was 6 seconds of texting. You can be looking down, and people won't admit this, but you can be looking down for 4.5 seconds. If you're going 50 miles an hour, that's about 400 yards. Yeah. You think of all the things that can happen on a football stadium. I mean, the problem is that people don't realize, they think they're getting away with it. They think they can do it. And just like the lady with the incident with my daughter, she never stopped. She kept going. We still haven't spoken. She doesn't know how close she came to changing my life and hers. And I think there's this sort of this sort of false sense of that I can do this, I can get away with it, but unfortunately the wake up call doesn't come in the form of a little fender bender where everybody does a group hug and they exchange insurance cards. It comes out in the form of a T-bone with glass and metal and steel all over the highway, and so there's no wake up call. The wake up call is it's the end of the road. So
the wake up call is not waking up. That's actually what it really boils down to. Well,
go ahead, Ashley. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that is all the time we have with you. But if you are interested in more information on Otterapp, you can find them online at otterapp.com. You can check out all the different companies, different movements, different groups of people. I think like Teens Against Distracted Driving. I mean, there's so many people that are kind of getting on board with this. You can read about it. And if you would like to send any questions to them on Twitter, you can find Otterapp on Twitter at Otterapp. And Erik, thank you so much for coming on the show today with us.
Ashley, thank you very much, and thanks for providing a live forum like this where everything doesn't get left on the editing floor. This is really a great forum.
Oh, thanks, Erik.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that. And so that was Otterapp. That's our app of the week.